So a couple of people have asked about the build on some YouTube comments and stuff that I've made. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing here with the DeathBlade. The DeathBlade is i580 right now, full legendary gear. The stats aren't great, it's about 50-50 crit spec. I want to have about 40% crit and about 60% spec, but that's just not the way that it's ended up working out. In terms of engravings, I have level 1 Surge, level 1 Disrespect, level 1 Contender, and unfortunately a very minor attack speed reduction of 2%. Not a big deal. And this is the build that I'm going with in terms of the skills. I have the Blitz Rush down here, level 10. I have the Soul Absorber here, level 10, and I have the Moonlit Sonic here, level 10, and those are my three main nukes that I use. I have the Wind Cut level 10, and that's for generating the Death Orb meter, which is like vital to the Surge build. Then I have Maelstrom, which not only generates a lot of meter because it hits very hard, but also gives me the Dark Order buff, which is a 20% attack speed buff and a couple other things. And then I use Spin Cutter level 4, because the level 4 on Spin Cutter here gives me Open Weakness, which gives me and all of my group members 9% additional damage on head attacks and back attacks. And then lastly, for mobility, I use Dark Axle here with the high axle tripod, so that I can go all the way over bosses to get behind them, and I can, get a little bit of extra damage out that way with the back attacks. With the Awakening skill, I use Flash Blink. It's way better. And then I also have Earth Cleaver in here. I threw in Earth Cleaver because it's one of the only abilities I have that's a counter ability, and it does stagger mid. I don't use it very often, but it is good to try to, counter a boss when they're glowing blue, something along those lines. So what does the rotation look like? Essentially, you want to use your Awakening skill as soon as possible. Then you want to Wind Cut. You might want to dump like a Moonlit Sonic, and then you want to immediately go into your class identity with the Death Orbs. Your Wind Cut should come almost right back off cooldown because your class affinity gives you cooldown reduction. And that's when you want to dump your Blitz Rush, your Soul Absorber, your Moonlit Sonic, all of your big damage. You also want to buff yourself with Dark Order from Maelstrom, and you want to do Spin Cutter in order to get your debuff on the target. So it would look something like, Spin Cutter for the debuff, Wind Cut for Orb, Moonlit Sonic, because you're going to reset the cooldown with your class identity, Maelstrom up, and then do your Blitz Rush, your Soul Absorber, Wind Cut again. And then you can go right back into your Spin Cutter to keep your 9% back attack debuff going. So that's kind of what it looks like in terms of the opener, and it is important what skills, what abilities you use in which order, and you're trying to generate as many surge stacks as possible. So let me show you what this looks like. I'm going to just make a boss here, and I'm going to do just a little DPS test. In some of the testing I've been doing before, I've been averaging around 30,000 DPS, but afterwards I'm going to change my engravings, and I'm going to show you how big of a difference engravings makes. So let's just summon a boss, and I'll do it like a 2-minute timer, and we'll see what happens there. Okay, so I'm going to Awakening, and then I'm going to use my Wind Cutter, and then I'm going to dump my Moonlit Sonic, class ability, get behind the boss, another Wind Cutter, get my buffs up, Moonlit Sonic, I'm going to Dark Axle just for the damage here. I'm going to come back around, get some back attacks in, another Wind Cut for more meter. My meter is at 14 right now. I want it to be a little bit higher. It's at 16. I'm going to dump this now. I'm going to Wind Cut, Soul Absorber, Moonlit Sonic. Back into class identity, which resets a bunch of my cooldowns, which is really nice. Get your debuff back up, buff yourself, Wind Cut again, big Soul Absorber, and then big Blitz Rush. We got 17 stacks, so I'm going to go ahead and Surge. Then I'm going to Wind Cut. Back into class identity, which should reset some of our cooldowns. It did. Get our Spin Cutter debuff. $17 stacks. Go ahead and Surge again. Gonna wait on a couple cooldowns now. Class identity. 16. Gonna use this. And gonna get my surge back out. Then we'll go ahead and stop test. And remove the boss. So we got about 35,000 DPS there, which is about what I was expecting with the gear and engravings and stuff that I have. At i580 or so, I think you're looking at somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000. Obviously, I'm lacking synergies from other classes, but also the boss is just standing in place and not doing anything. So if this is the kind of DPS that you're going to see in like an actual boss encounter, probably not, because the boss is going to be teleporting around, you're going to get interrupted on things, but your DPS will go up from your group mates. So you should be able to do around 4 million damage in 2 minutes with this kind of gear on a DeathBlade.